Hi, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from RicoScores, and this is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. I'm going to play the video for y'all to see after the intro, but apparently Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson loves what we got going on with Adam Peters. He had a press conference for the Lions today, mostly to talk about playoffs, stuff like that, because they're in the playoffs. That's their primary focus right now. But they asked him how he felt about Adam Peters. He spoke glowingly about him, and even the fact that he took some time to actually answer a question that was thrown at him about Adam Peters and to actually take the time to address that rather than just saying the simple coach speak, yeah, we're just focused on the playoffs, that's it, don't ask me anything about another team or anything like that, speaks loudly as well. So this is his first time actually speaking about the Commanders directly. Again, I already talked about it in another video, how he basically said he doesn't even plan on taking all interviews. Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator for the Lions, said yeah, he's going to take every interview that's requested of him. Ben Johnson said, nah, I'm good. Like, he sounds like he's already focused on the couple of teams that he's probably narrowed his search down to as to where his favorite landing spots are. And it sounds like he didn't cancel us out with the way that he spoke about Adam Peters. So if he's limiting the amount of teams that he's focused on to becoming a new head coach, it's great to be one of those top teams. So that's a big takeaway. Also, it's already confirmed that he will interview tomorrow, January 19th, as in Friday, virtually with the Commanders. I already did a whole video breakdown on that and why we would want Ben Johnson as our head coach and why he would also want to become our head coach and things like that. But I also want to focus in this video primarily on who Ben Johnson's primary choice for offensive coordinator to work under him in Washington would be. I have a great clue for that. Also, we got to review the NFL's interview rules and regulations and all that type of stuff just to keep you updated on when we can officially interview guys like Ben Johnson and everybody else, whether they're in the playoffs still or if they're not in the playoffs anymore, all of that type of stuff, because in-person interviews matter. Like when it comes to Rooney Rule, virtual interviews do not count. We're going to talk about that at some point in this video, but so we got to do these in-person interviews at the very least with 2 minority potential head coaching candidates as well. So all of this virtual stuff is cool, which is what we're doing today with Ben Johnson, and also we have some more virtual interviews coming tomorrow. But at the end of the day, nothing really matters until we get these in-person interviews going. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Y'all know me, man. Like I keep promising, I'm gonna have all of these videos that I'm working on, and I plan on coming out with one video at one point, and then some breaking news happens, something important happens, something monumental happens, and I would consider this pretty monumental because I mean I already felt like Ben Johnson was more than likely going to become our head coach at this point, but this only adds fuel to that fire. But either way, like I told y'all yesterday, I planned on coming out with my video breaking down my favorite defensive coordinator candidate, especially if we go offensive minded head coach like a guy like Ben Johnson or a Bobby Slowick. I have everything I need ready to work on that video, and then out of nowhere this happens. So I'll probably come out with that video later on tonight, so stay tuned for that. More live streams. Check out the mock draft I just did. I'm already working on my next one where we trade back, because I see a lot of people would prefer to trade back, so we're going to do a trade back scenario as well. And then of course, after we officially hire our head coach, we're going to do another mock draft that's in his point of view. The one I just did yesterday was in the Adam Peters point of view and how he would want to basically bring over and reproduce what he did with the 49ers with the Commanders and find a lot of the draft picks, how he can get another Fred Warner, another George Kittle, all of that type of stuff. So go check that out if you haven't already. After we hire head coach, more than likely Ben Johnson, we're going to do another mock draft for that as well. His point of view, how he can get Jahmyr Gibbs and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta in this draft, those type of things. So make sure you stay tuned for all of that crazy amount of content. One-stop shop for the Washington Commanders. Let's get it. All right, so earlier today, around like 1 p.m., sometime in the afternoon, Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, who again is currently in the playoffs right now, so I'm surprised he even addressed this and even took the time to answer this, especially the way that he did with how excited he sounds and things like that. But he was asked if he knows much about new Commanders GM Adam Peters. And basically he said that he's heard nothing but fantastic things about Adam Peters, and really emphasized the word fantastic. Like, he put a little juice on it. I'm trying to tell you, he put a little something to that fantastic. He felt that fantastic. He meant that. But basically, so far, everything he's hearing behind the scenes, he loves what he's hearing. And he basically can't wait to meet with them virtually. And again, he will meet with them virtually tomorrow, as in Friday, January 19th. I can't wait to see what comes out of that. I'm pretty sure, I'm going to be ready and loaded to go ahead and report whatever news we get from that situation, about maybe they have an agreement already in place, but of course we can't finalize it until we address the Rooney Rule, we interview other candidates. But we'll see the betting odds probably increase for the chances of Ben Johnson being our head coach, all kinds of stuff. But before I dive into everything going on, let me just go ahead and show you the video itself of him talking about Adam Peters and the Washington Commanders.
I've heard nothing but fantastic things about people that have worked with him directly or have met him over the course of scouting on the road. So look forward to meeting them and talking more.
Close one more in football then.
Man, did you hear the way he said fantastic? Like, he put a little emphasis on it. Like I said before I even showed y'all the video, man, that boy put a little, like, he meant that. He was like, yeah, these boys, hey, man, I'm hearing some good things behind the scenes with these guys, man. We might have something going right now. I mean, he probably, like I said, he's already narrowed his head coach and landing spots down since a couple of weeks ago, probably even way before then, but he revealed that in a press conference, I think last week with the Lions or something like that. Again, Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinators of the same team, the Lions, said that he's taking every interview. Ben Johnson said he's not, which sounds like he's probably narrowed down his search, and I'm pretty sure that means that includes us, especially with the way that he just spoke glowingly about us, and I'm super excited, man. Also, to expound upon a lot of the things he said, even beyond the video clip I just showed y'all, he was asked, how do you prioritize which head coach interviews you'll take? He said, quote, I've left that to other people. I know it's still a very fluid situation, and truth be told, we'll find out more once the game plan is done. That's been told to everybody I've been around. Nothing is more important than the game plan. I'm not mad at that. Again, that's coach speak. That's what he's supposed to do. You are currently in the playoffs. Yeah, I know you're probably even excited behind the scenes about your next potential head coaching opportunity that you'll get. I mean, his first head coaching opportunity, especially for us with what we're building right now. I could definitely see him being excited. But of course, you need to focus on the fact that you're in the playoffs right now. Go win a Super Bowl, man. You're about to win a few Super Bowls with us anyway, but go ahead and win your Super Bowl with your Lions right now. Go ahead. Even though completely selfish reasons, me as in Rico of RicoScores would prefer for the Lions to lose as soon as possible, so we can go ahead and get that in-person interview as soon as possible, go ahead and get him hired as a head coach as soon as possible, and then we can start to get the defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, all of the positional coaches underneath him going. We can just go ahead and move with this process quickly, and we can start to focus on free agency, draft, all of that type of stuff. So I'm super excited about that. We'll see, but of course I'm rooting for him. I mean, that looks like he's our potential head coach, and I don't want to put any ill will or bad energy on him. Go ahead and win as much as you can, man. But again, for selfish reasons, would be nice for him to be able to go ahead and physically interview with us in person, probably Miami. I mean, the way Josh Harris has been doing this the entire offseason, he's probably not taking anybody to the DMV, because like I've already explained in my video when I was talking about all of the GMs coming in for interviews and explaining why he probably preferred Miami than the DMV, he's probably selling them on the future, the vision, and what the Commanders could be. So look at this mansion. Now, basically, think of the equivalent of that as far as facilities, stadium, all of that type of stuff, rather than taking them to the DMV with the facilities that he's not very much so responsible for, and why they're so far behind, why they don't look that good, why it's not comfortable to be around there and things like that. He's like, I don't even want you to see what facilities we currently have right now before we hire you, man. I want to sell you on the dream in the future. I ain't mad at it. Also, somebody asked him, when do you finish that game plan? He said, quote, so I'm slow, and then he laughed. I think the staff will get a chuckle out of that one. So the game plan is never really done until probably Saturday night. So we'll get probably 90%, 95% of it in by tomorrow afternoon, and then early Saturday, and then Saturday afternoon, I'm usually still working on that thing. And again, like he said in the video clip that I showed y'all, when asked about, a lot of people have mentioned you as a front runner for the Washington job. What's your relationship with new GM there, Adam Peters? And he clearly definitely didn't say no. But again, even though he hasn't interacted with them directly, he said, quote, "I know him just very briefly. I've heard nothing but fantastic things about people that have worked with him directly or have met him over the course of scouting and on the road. So I look forward to meeting him and talking with him," unquote. And again, he's virtually interviewing with us tomorrow, but he's also going to virtually interview with the Panthers tomorrow, and then he's going to virtually interview with the Chargers and the Seahawks Saturday. So this is a busy man. Like he said, he's preparing the game plan for this upcoming playoff game, and a lot of that's going to take place like Friday and by Saturday afternoon, and then he's got to get ready for interviews with the Chargers and Seahawks Saturday, and while he's working on the main part of the game plan Friday, he has to interview with us and the Panthers. This is a busy guy, man, and I respect it. But also, I want to bring up the point that we do have a connection now. Now, granted, the Panthers are his hometown team. He went to UNC and everything, North Carolina guy. But at the same time, Rick Spielman's brother, Rick Spielman, the Vikings GM and team builder that we brought over as basically like an advisory consultant type of guy of how to build our franchise, and a good guy that has great relationships with agents, any way that he could help us win, especially off the field and as far as making football decisions. That's what Rick Spielman is here to do. His brother Chris Spielman works for the Lions as one of their top executives. And I'm telling you, man, that helps us get behind the scenes insider info on everything we need to know about Ben Johnson before we even interview him tomorrow. That probably helped Adam Peters and company figure out if they wanted to beeline straight to Ben Johnson, like immediately once we can finally actually talk to this guy face to face, or not, for the head coaching job, and like basically whether to make him a priority or not, and even vice versa. Ben Johnson can ask Chris Spielman and have him talk to Rick Spielman and all of that about what is the Washington Commanders' vision and plan to build a Super Bowl winner before we even talk. Before him and Adam Peters even get to talk virtually tomorrow, both of these guys are able to do a little bit of homework on each other because of those connections. And I'm pretty sure, if anything, that just speeds up the process. And by the time they interview virtually together Friday, tomorrow, there will be at least a little bit of familiarity before they even have a chance to talk. So I'm really excited about that. I'll take that connection because, remember, I'm pretty sure the end-all be-all was not Bob Myers being hired here as the reason why we got Adam Peters. I'm pretty sure even without Bob Myers, we still more than likely would have hired Adam Peters. But it didn't hurt to have somebody that went to UCLA with them in the building to also help kind of facilitate that whole thing and to get that going, to kind of expedite the process a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if us having Rick Spielman expedites the process on us potentially getting Ben Johnson. So I'm telling y'all, Josh Harris is playing chess, not checkers, man. I'm telling you, this guy is doing some genius stuff. Bob Myers to help get Adam Peters, Rick Spielman to help get Ben Johnson. Come on, dog. How can you not love what Josh Harris has going on right now? Right now, he's shooting 100% from the field. And I don't expect him to miss anytime soon with any decisions that we make as far as front office, coaching staff, or anything like that. I'm telling y'all should be far more excited about Eugene Shin than y'all probably are right now. That's my guy for a reason. I'm super excited about what he's going to contribute to this organization as well. Also, I don't know if y'all have noticed, and this is probably a part of the video that a lot of y'all are here for, but Ben Johnson seems to love the Lions game passing coordinator, Tanner Engstrand. And I'd be willing to bet that Ben Johnson will bring him over to the Commanders as his offensive coordinator. I mean, look at his history. Graduate assistant for San Diego, then running backs coach for San Diego, quarterbacks coach for San Diego, and then offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach for San Diego, and then assistant head coach and offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach for San Diego for 4 years, 2013 and 2017. Then he was the offensive analyst for Michigan in 2018. Then he was the offensive coordinator and running backs coach for the DC Defenders. I know y'all remember that fun era. Then he was the Detroit Lions offensive assistant for the year of 2021, then the Detroit Lions tight ends coach and passing game coordinator from 2020 to 2022 with the offensive assistant somewhere in the middle. And then right now he's the Detroit Lions passing game coordinator starting this season. And look at them in the playoffs. I'm pretty sure he contributed a lot to that, man. And with the tight end development experience that he has, that makes me really, really want him as our offensive coordinator under Ben Johnson as well. Because even just beyond continuity and chemistry, because that's important, that is a strategic advantage within itself. Let Ben Johnson bring over as many Lions people, staff members, coaching guys like Mark Brunell as quarterbacks coach, whatever, Antoine Randall as wide receivers coach, whatever he wants to do. Bring over as many people that help him find the success that he had this season as possible, and why not only are they in the playoffs, but they've already won a playoff game and quite likely to go to the NFC Championship game. So why Fix was not broken is my logic. And even beyond that, even just beyond continuity and chemistry and reasons why he should bring over as many people as he possibly can, this guy Tanner specifically having a strong track record of developing tight ends is huge for the Commanders, y'all. Because like I keep saying, I still want to draft some tight end talent, but I feel like we've had more of a coaching issue than a talent issue when it comes to our tight ends underperforming. I mean, I just feel like we didn't even try to get Cole Turner involved this past season. I don't even understand what that was. He was balling out in the offseason, and then we just he was hurt for a little bit, and then we just kind of forgot about him for some reason. And then again, Sam Laporta is great. Not taking anything away from him. I'm gonna keep saying this, but it's more of a Ben Johnson's genius than anything else as to why Sam Laporta has been balling out. Even guys like George Kittle, he's not getting open on his own. The vast majority of the time, he's schemed open by Kyle Shanahan. Tight ends are very scheme dependent. So I do feel like we do have a slight tight end talent deficiency issue right now, but I feel like it's more coaching than anything else, man. By far, I feel like. So I feel like if we bring in that combination of Ben and Tanner, I am fully optimistic that they can solve our tight end position problem just from pure coaching and development, but also scouting and finding the right tight end in the draft as well. If there's any duo that I trust to scout, then draft, then develop, and then involve a great tight end in Washington, is Ben and Tanner as a duo right now. So why not go ahead and bring them over? And also, don't forget that Tanner has experience as a quarterbacks and running backs coach as well. So him being our offensive coordinator with offensive-minded Ben Johnson as our head coach could really work. Now, of course, like I've said before, if we hire like a defensive-minded head coach, Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator Shane Waldron is my favorite offensive coordinator candidate. And of course, I love me some Todd Monken too. And now that's bias, but also results. Go Dogs, you know what I'm saying? But with an offensive-minded head coach, you can't do much better bringing over a guy that your new offensive-minded head coach likes and trusts the most, like a guy like him. He seems to bring up this Tanner guy up more than anybody else in press conferences and things like that. So, again, just to reiterate, Shane Waldron, Todd Monken, I love them, but they're going to want more power than what Ben Johnson is probably willing to give up to his offensive coordinator. He wants to run the show as an offensive-minded head coach, whereas Todd Monken and Shane Waldron probably want to run the offense totally by themselves and probably are leaning more towards being offensive coordinators for defensive-minded head coaches. So outside of those two, I think Tanner is probably our best choice right there. First of all, just from him naturally, his experience and how he's contributed to the Lions winning, but also continuity and chemistry. And if Ben Johnson trusts him, if Ben Johnson likes him, I love him. You like him, I love him. Let's get to work. And like I've already said, I'm betting that we land Ben Johnson. And Tanner is the most likely candidate to be hired by Ben Johnson to be our offensive coordinator in that situation anyway. And speaking of betting, at this point, from everything I'm hearing, reading, and seeing everywhere, I'm willing to bet that Ben Johnson will be our next head coach versus the field. Like if I had two sides and I can only put money on one of the sides, one side is Ben Johnson, the other side is any and everybody else, it's to the point that I'm putting money on the Ben Johnson side. It feels that imminent, honestly, to me, especially after that clip from earlier. And then all of the betting odds, all of the reports from ESPN's Dan Graziano, from all of the insider information he has behind the scenes from trustworthy sources, executives, agents, everything, you know what I'm saying, owners, and then also all these different reports coming from a multitude of sources, man. I think Ben Johnson is just a matter of time at this point. Just like for my Georgia Bulldogs, Caleb Downs is only a matter of time at this point. You feel me? Also, he's already the betting odds favorite to become our next head coach by a mile. Like even Bobby Slowick, who's in second place right now, is far away from Ben Johnson in the betting odds. And Ben Johnson's betting odds seem to go up every 3 days. Like it's big momentum going right now. It's a snowball effect. It's only going to turn into an avalanche. I'm telling y'all, Ben Johnson, I'm willing to bet money he's our next head coach at this point. But let's also review the NFL head coaching interview process and rules and all that type of stuff. So let's start with the fact that teams with open head coaching positions were able to begin requesting interviews with candidates from other teams as of January 8th, and we hopped on that immediately. Those interviews must happen virtually before the end of the divisional round games on January 21st. So we have until January 21st to get our virtual interviews in, just to go ahead and let you know. Also, the NFL recommends that teams with open head coaching positions positions use the virtual interview window to set up an initial interview, so those teams are eligible to request a second interview with the candidate from a Super Bowl team during the bye week. Note, teams may not interview employees of other teams that didn't make the postseason until the third day after the employer's team's Week 18 game. For example, January 9th for a game on January 6th or January 10th for a game on January 7th. But that doesn't have anything to do with Ben Johnson because Ben Johnson is currently in the playoffs. So let's talk about teams in the postseason. This is where Ben Johnson comes in. If the employer team has a bye in the wild card round, virtual interviews may begin 3 days after Week 18 games, January 9th or January 10th, whichever is applicable. It must happen before the end of wild card games. So that applies to 49ers and Baltimore Ravens head coaches or head coaching candidates, potentially like a Mike McDonald. Most notably, we had to do that before the end of the wild card games. If the employer team is participating in the wild card round, virtual interviews may begin 3 days after the team's wild card game. It must happen before the end of the divisional round games on January 21st as follows. And this applies to Ben Johnson. This is where Ben Johnson comes in, which is why we're interviewing him on the 19th, which is before the 21st. For a Saturday or Sunday game, virtual interviews are allowed starting January 16th. For a Monday game, virtual interviews are allowed starting January 17th. And then also starting January 22nd, the day after the divisional round ends, teams can conduct in-person or virtual interviews with candidates employed by other NFL teams whose seasons have officially ended. So this is when we can start to do in-person interviews if that's the way you want to go, as of January 22nd. But that's only for teams whose seasons are already done. They're no longer in the playoffs. So if Ben Johnson loses this weekend, we can officially start to schedule an in-person interview with him as of January 22nd. Teams cannot hold initial interviews with candidates employed by teams participating in the AFC and NFC championship games until the end of the employer's team's season. Second interviews are not allowed until January 29th for those people. A candidate's employer team may not voluntarily grant permission for those interviews. Don't forget that as well. Now, starting January 29th through February 4th, the bye week between the conference championships and the Super Bowl. So if Ben Johnson wins the NFC championship and his Lions are going to the Super Bowl, this is when this applies. Second interviews, either in person or virtual, are allowed with head coach candidates employed by teams in the Super Bowl. The team conducting the interviews must notify the employer's teams, of course. Contact with head coach candidates in the Super Bowl is not allowed from February 4th to February 12th, the day after the Super Bowl. So we better get that in between January 29th and February 4th, because after that we have to wait until at least February 12th, February 13th. Additionally, no contract announcements or contract agreements are permitted until after the end of the employer's team's season. So basically, as soon as Ben Johnson is out of the playoffs or wins the Super Bowl, whenever, that's when we can start to talk contracts and things like that. So we can't do anything contract wise until Ben Johnson is no longer the head coach for the Detroit Lions, I guess you could say. At least their season is over. So whether that means immediately if they lose in this upcoming divisional round, or if they lose in the national conference round, if they win or lose in the Super Bowl, all of that matters, and that affects when we can finally actually start to talk contracts with this guy and announce them and stuff like that. Now remember, the Rooney Rule is very important as well. Teams must conduct an in-person interview with at least 2 external candidates who are people of color and or women. Virtual interviews do not satisfy the Rooney Rule requirements. There's no getting around it. There's no trying to cheat the system. You need to bring them in for an interview either to the DMV or more than likely Miami. And for reasons I've already explained, I can see Ben Johnson getting the interview in Miami, but for them to satisfy the Rooney Rule, I can see them doing people dirty and just go ahead and interviewing them in the DMV. But I doubt it. I think Josh Harris is probably chilling in Miami. He's probably going to have everybody go to Miami. We'll see how that goes, though. But either way, they got to get those 2 Rooney Rule interviews out of the way before they even think about being able to talk contracts and hire Ben Johnson, all of that type of stuff. Just to go ahead and let you know. Also, the Rams defensive coordinator Raheem Morris, who you can honestly say got the better of Ben Johnson in their matchup, even though the Rams lost, you can argue that Raheem Morris had a better game against Ben Johnson than Ben Johnson had against him, especially in the second half of that game. Already did a full breakdown on that, brought up all of the stats from individual players, third down percentages versus how the Lions, what they averaged and points per game, yards per game, third down conversion percentage per game, how Raheem Morris held them below their season average in a lot of ways and things like that. How he won that matchup, in my opinion, if I had to choose between the two. That guy is scheduled to interview with the Commanders today, as in Thursday, so that's already happening. And Dan Quinn, of course, the Cowboys defensive coordinator, is being interviewed virtually by the Commanders as well today, and definitely don't want Dan Quinn at all, and I highly doubt we even want him. I'm pretty sure this is just some due diligence stuff here. Also, I want to point out again that Adam Peters did not take interviews with anybody else. We were the first team he interviewed with, and then he interviewed with us for a second time, and then took the job before he even interviewed with anybody else. I want to also reiterate that. So maybe Ben Johnson loves Adam Peters as much as Adam Peters loves the Washington Commanders, and with Josh Harris is growing here, maybe Ben Johnson loves it just as much as Adam Peters did, and as soon as he can legally, allowed by the NFL, be able to take our head coaching job, he may jump on it. He may love us as much as we love him. So that's the end of this video. Make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button, man. I really appreciate y'all. Of course, I'm busy, so I try to read and reply to as many comments as possible. I'm still working on trying to go back to other older videos and reply to as much as possible. But make sure y'all get in the comment section and let me know how you feel about this whole situation. Of course, a lot of y'all don't have Ben Johnson as your #1 candidate, but with as likely as this seems, are you at the very least okay and happy with Ben Johnson being hired? I mean, I'm already getting to the point where Bobby Slowick, I'm not gonna lie, is starting to creep up into my 1A with Ben Johnson as a 1B, and I know a lot of y'all, Mike McDonald's in my top 3. I know a lot of y'all have Mike McDonald as your favorite candidate, but which seems imminent at this point, Ben Johnson becomes the Washington Commanders' next head coach, are you happy about that? And of course, let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Do you think the odds have increased with what he said in that clip? Now that this is our first time hearing Ben Johnson ever even talk about Adam Peters of the Washington Commanders, does that give you more assurance that he will become the Washington Commanders' next head coach? All of that. So let me know. Stay tuned. Again, I'm working on my favorite defensive coordinator candidate video. I'm also working on the video breaking down why Todd Monken and Shane Waldron are my 2 favorite defensive coordinator candidates if we go with a defensive-minded head coach like a Mike McDonald. And again, be on the lookout for more mock drafts after we hire a head coach, a mock draft for that. Even before that, I'm working on a mock draft right now for if we trade back, because I see a lot of people would probably prefer to trade back, especially if Caleb Williams is gone #1. What would we do then? A lot of people aren't big fans of Drake May and Jaden Daniels, so we could potentially trade back, get some elite tackle talent, and still maybe even get a quarterback. Stay tuned for all of that. I'm gonna catch y'all later. Appreciate y'all. I'm out.